Hey everybody, I've had a lot of requests for videos and stuff of our project, so I thought I'd make one and stuff I'd like to do. So the property starts over here on the main street. Um, from the street to our property line, we have this probably about 5.5 foot area that I'm hoping for in the future to be filled with a couple of fruit stands so I can share all the surplus of all the stuff we're making. So that'll be a perfect, there's parking, there'll be fruit stands. All of our surplus will come out here to the stands and people will be able to just stop by and, get their local food for free. So then we have this little buffer zone. It's like what I like to call, I don't know, the beautification zone, or I don't know, it's a nice little zone. We have some good trees, the grass cover. Basically, it just buffers everything that I want to do away from, any conservative minds. So we have the nice trees. The chickens come out here sometimes, and there's more I'd like to do with this space. It's probably about 20 feet wide by 110 feet long, with a little rock driveway in the middle. But once the rest of the project is finished, or in a state that I like it, we'll work out here. But for now, this is great. Keeps the neighbors at bay. So inside the project here, we have a completely wild, unfinished north side, or east side, with a giant, beautiful mulberry tree that produces mulberries massively every year. Still got a few mulberries on the tree, but it's a huge, beautiful tree, and that'll definitely be included in a overstory or something when we get this side going on. We have a large concrete pad here. This is from the existing house that was demolished. Right now we're using it mostly for just storage and stuff. Eventually, this will be a nice place for meetings and sitting around, or putting a construction on later. We have a big pile of wood chips that just recently got dropped off. We've been trying to mulch everything down, build up the soil. Over here, this is on the most west side of the property. Over here is going to be our zone 1 style garden, like kitchen garden. It's not fully in swing yet. Got a couple of projects going with the earth boxes, a herb spiral that's planted, a nice big gateway for driving any machines or anything we need in here. A couple of raised beds. The soil over here is really, really clay. So we're just still building that up. That's a project that's only maybe 3 months old. So when you come down to the end of this zone 1 garden, this garden is 60 feet by 60 feet square, or maybe it's about 60 feet by 50 feet, like a rectangle. This lattice here, obviously it's not a strong fence, but my goal is, I've been berming up the soil along the edge, and I'm planting, as you can see on this side, what I'm hoping to be a thick enough hedge that would keep the chickens out. So with a combination of the hedge and the lattice, over time I'm hoping we'll build a thick fence, living fence. So coming back this way, we have some trees that were here when we got the property. It's a pea shrub with a nice ornamental purple tree, and inside of there is a gooseberry that's been doing quite well. I don't know what this tree is over here. The finches seem to love it. The chickens sit under it. It's a beautiful tree. The top's kind of dying off, but it's doing good. Now we have this wood pile here, a lot more wood chips. We've been getting lots of deliveries of wood chips. We're going back north right now to the giant piney, which will be a big part of a big project you can see here. I'll explain that in a minute. I wanted to come over and talk about this area for a second. What I'm doing over here is trying to develop more localized seeds. So what I do is I saved all these seeds from last year from our crops that we grew, saved them with no tender love and care, brought them over here, threw them on the ground, threw some chips over them. That was it. I didn't water them, I didn't baby them, I haven't been doing anything, and some of them just took off and have been doing great. So I'm hoping to keep that practice going on throughout the property forever, saving all my seeds, throwing them on the ground, basically just really treating them harshly to develop some strains that will just thrive here with no care. So we're coming back north now along the east side of the property. Under the piney, we've had this raspberry bramble, and it's impossible to get rid of this thing, which I haven't really tried, but it's very, very healthy. I chopped it down, transplanted a lot of it to various places. The berries are good, so that'll be incorporated. We have a pea shrub here, which will be nice for the support species when we get this whole area done. We were lucky enough to have an old horse barn that has 3 empty rooms in it and a large empty storage area, working gate, storage on the right hand side. Coming back to the west now, we have a quad with a trailer that we got for trade, an old laptop. So here is a project I wanted to show people more about. What we're building here is a large hugel wall around the circumference of a giant pine tree. The pine tree does very well at keeping the water off the base. It's thick enough to keep most rainstorms from flooding down. And our goal is we're going to build this large hugel bed around. We've already started burying this side. And we're going to build it all the way up to the base of the piney. And then we'll plant it with more evergreens and food crops and trees. And I'm hoping that will create a beautiful subclimate underneath the piney that will allow the chickens to use this area as a coop. So obviously we'll probably rebuild these coop stands, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to build it up where they'll actually nest inside the tree. And then we want to build the roosts areas directly into the earth structure using our logs. So I built an example here, and I think that's going to be a really cool project when it's all done. So let's go further back to where we're going to head back to the west now, where we have another bramble. This was here when we moved in, and as well as this apple tree. So we have a cool example of growing brambles directly underneath a very healthy apple tree. So you can see here, this is a blackberry, and here are apples, and these apples are really good. Kind of tart when they're green, but they get more yellowish towards the fall, and they're just really good. This is not watered, it just does really well. The chickens get most of the blackberries, which is fine, but this is a really cool thing I like to show people. Because coming back over, we have a big blue spruce. That'll be another chicken coop with the hugel earth structures. And then crowded out of that is a pear tree, which was here when I moved in as well. That is kind of a phenomenon that it gets very little sun. It's completely shaded over by this spruce, and it produces pears with no irrigation every year. Coming back this way, we're going north again. We have our 2 beehives and another little gardening bed that I use for just growing flowers and perennials, just for the bees mostly. I just throw lots of flower seeds in there that I find, gather up wildly. I've been trying to cultivate our own sunflowers by throwing in lots of diversity there. So we have another beehive here. We have 2 successful beehives, lots of activity with them. All right, so let's go into the main project for now that all the work has been done on. this area was completely full of sagebrush, or like tumbleweeds and sagebrush when we started. You can see that we've probably put maybe 60,000 pounds of wood chips in this area that we got donated for free. So just in this little area, you can see that we have 5 berry plants, fennel over in the into the east, with artichoke plants that are doing very well. You know, we got interplanted with some marigolds. This is an apple tree, and underneath of all of this is root vegetables with carrots and beets and radishes and a big beautiful onion. More over here, another small apple tree, another small apple tree to its left, a really big polyculture of some perennial flowers, squashes, some hollylocks. In here is potatoes with some strawberries, sunflowers behind it. This right I'm walking on now is our swale, which is full of about 2 feet of solid wood chips. And I'm looking down on the swale here, which is, we have some Romanesco broccolis coming up that we replanted our fall crop. Strawberries, some leeks. Over in this area, I planted a lot of perennials like some trees and the hollylocks and the sunflowers with the thornless raspberries and blackberries and huckleberries in here. And then I took a couple of seed packs and just threw them onto the ground here, and you can see that came up as a lot of really massive tomato plant, some really big marigolds, small marigolds, some marigolds here, lots of strawberries going all the way over. This tree right here is an Asian pear right on top of the swale, with underneath it is a fall-bearing raspberry or blackberry, I don't remember. To the north, or to the east of those, is 2 Siberian pea shrubs for nitrogen fixing. We have rainwater collection, some more random squash plants that we just threw up here in the shaded area that are just destroying it. Over here is something I like to show off. This is a peach tree that I grew from a peach pit starting in January. So that's a 1-year growth. It's probably 25 inches high. And this massive plant here is a sweet potato. I like to throw those in the ground around just as a cover crop. They don't usually produce well, but I think they're pretty. They, provide shade. I just like them. They're really easy to grow. No watering. Really big first year of growth of this. This is the second year growth. First time I've ever got berries off of this bramble here. Massive sunflower crops. I just took probably about 1 gallon freezer bag full of sunflower seeds that I saved from last year, distributed them throughout the whole garden with no planning, and ended up with this big kind of wall of sunflowers that grew directly in the swale. So you can see how well the water works by filling up the swale, and then it grew these strawberries, or these sunflowers. When you come on the north side of the swale, I have an apple tree that's grown from seed, some perennial flowers, another peach tree that's grown from seed, I don't remember, like a honeyberry or some huckleberry, I don't remember, some cuttings that didn't really do too well. You can see we got lots of fungal activity going on. Some mushrooms growing up in the shade. There's like a forest of mushrooms over there. This is a wild zone for now. Massive squash plants with intergrowing sunflowers. I mean, look at this thing. It's huge. It's probably as big as a basketball right now. No bug damage whatsoever. We have black currant, and over here another black currant. This project right here is called the tree pea. Basically, we built a teepee and we're hoping that we'll completely be able to cover it in vegetation, of perennial vegetation. We got a massive squash plant in there, but inside of here we have five trees grown from seedlings. We have 5 grape trees. We have goji berries, honeysuckle, hardy kiwis, And eventually we're hoping that this will all grow up and be a cool little zone inside of there for sitting. You can see we have more sunflowers that popped up. Lots of different squash plants growing very well without irrigation in the wood chips. Those are some cantaloupes. Lots of bug activity. Big watermelons coming up. You see lots more sunflowers that with no planning, I just saved my sunflower seeds from last year and just threw them in, and they are growing massive wherever they grow. This one here must be at least 10 feet tall. At least, hasn't even flowered yet. And they're just growing right inside the sunflowers. More melons in here. More sunflowers. The sunflowers seem to provide a lot of structure and shade and bird activity. So it's insects and then birds come in later. I just love them. They're just perfect. So more sunflowers. A nice, doing very well watermelon. You can see some mushrooms coming up. I'm pretty sure that's an edible mushroom that my brother's been eating. Tastes like a radish. Here's another one. So we have more sunflowers. We come down here. I have a big squash plant. These white flowers it's from a gourd. And then you can see we have our corn crop for this year. It's growing in the wood chips. Here's some more corn. Back here, a lot of stuff will just not grow before. It's like a weird cold microclimate. So chipped it really heavy, and I basically just threw as many squash or as many beans as I could down here and left it alone. Didn't water it. It's kind of just, I'm hoping it'll just kind of put a lot of nitrogen, and we'll just smash this back down, and we'll be able to plant something down here more perennial. So coming back up to the south, we got a chokecherry that's doing not that well. Massive squash plants. I mean, these things are just huge compared to last year. These are like a yellow squash. They're huge. I mean, look at these. I mean, that's a small leaf. It's big. I mean, massive. What I'm looking at here is the first year of our hugel bed. So this has been planted with nitrogen fixing cover crop, but behind it, where all the water saves, is these huge squash plants that they're not actually growing in the swale or like in the hugel bed, but they're growing next to it, and they're just massive, huge. I mean, look at this thing. Just, and I have a big hand. I'm a tall guy. So over here we have another bean bed, trying to prep this soil. This bean is a really cool bean. It's called a Colorado River bean. It was found in the Four Corners regions. So it's kind of a Utah, Arizona native going on. Some more watermelon coming back around. Random squash plants. Lots of logs and heavies for our beds. Over here is a really cool interplanted bed with native flowers for the bees. Some more squash. Here, tomatoes. And then we have some cherry trees. This is more brambles, berry brambles. A really successful grapevine. I mean, tons of food here. Squash. All this whole area has been planted with potatoes. Lots of varieties. Been working on getting the potatoes to flower so we can grow potatoes from more true potato seeds. We have more berries here along the perimeter. Goji berries that are doing very well. These berries were actually grown from seeds from berries that I got from Whole Foods. They're doing fantastic. A giant 8-foot tall mullein plant. Apple tree. Yeah, so that's a lot of what we have going on. We have way big plans. We also have access to this yard that's adjacent here on the fence. It's where the house is, where we live. And we have 36 chickens that live with us. You can see them out over there in the yard. They just free range out here. They have full access to the land. We have 4 roosters and 32 hens, and all of them live happily together. This rocks here is a water feature project I've been working on to keep flowing water in the area, to bring life in, to give the chickens constant access to clean water, brings in wild birds. Here's another view of the chicken coop. Yeah, so if you made it through this whole video, thanks for watching. It's been a lot of fun.